2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us. Let's break down Brannon's breakdown. Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers.
We're therapists.
And we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin. What's up, Tyler?
What's going on, man? I'm excited for this one. You're going to be on the hot seat finally for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it's not what you think. I mean, I could get personal. We could talk about all kinds of breakdowns in my life, but it's not what you think.
I just had a guy on the phone earlier this week. I was talking to him. He was talking about the podcast and our relationship on the podcast. And he's like, dude, I don't know how you do it. He's like, Brannon always throws stuff out there that like either makes you uncomfortable or he makes fun of you or whatever, and all you ever do is just like laugh with him. He's like, you should give it back to him.
You'd have to go into a big explanation about our childhood to let him know why the dynamics are the way they are. Like, I am trained for 45 years on how to do this, and so is Tyler. Tyler's very good at knowing how to survive. You're just seeing our survival skills.
What he's witnessing is how both of us have survived in this world.
Yeah. I mean, I play that part of the middle ground. I can dish it out a little, and Tyler can just keep the peace and
just roll with it. Yeah. It's fine. No big deal. But at least today we're going to be talking about your breakdown a little bit instead of me. So that's good.
Yeah, that's funny he said that. I hope the thing about it is I would love it if you did. You know, if you threw some random weird thing out there, like, "Whoa, Tyler, okay."
I had one pop up. I had one pop up in my mind this week, and this kind of throws Rex under the bus a little bit. Our brother, but
he can take it.
I think he can handle it. But I was.
As long as it's not about Irish Spring.
There's too much drama around Irish Spring.
Don't bring that up
for later. So, no, I was going through old pictures with my daughter this weekend. She brought in my old picture books, and she sat down and she's like, "Hey, Dad, I want to go through these. I want you to tell me all the stories about your pictures." And she was kind of going through all our childhood pictures, and for some reason in my photos, like the hard copy photos, the old photos
there's an image of Rex when I think it was my senior year, his freshman year. We went to the state championship, and all the underclassmen we gave like really funky haircuts to. And we gave Rex
We were the Highland Rams.
We were the Highland Rams. We gave Rex a haircut that was shaved into the shape of the Rams. So it looked like he was
ram horns.
He
had great ram horns.
he had some phenomenal ram horns. And I was telling her, like the very first game of the state playoffs, he was like running up and down the stands, like trying to get the wave started with his ram horns. And then one night, driving up the neighborhood to one of my best friend's house, this car came by at an intersection and went through the intersection. And I just see up on the top, there's this dude up on the top in a saddle with cowboy boots and a Speedo, just riding on the top of the car. And then as they drove by, it was Rex with his ram horns.
And cowboy boots.
With cowboy boots and a Speedo and his ram horns. And they had like tethered a saddle to the top of the car, and he was just riding around the neighborhood.
Sounds safe.
just crazy. So my daughter was like, got a good laugh out of that one.
Which the funny part of that is that's not even that weird of a story to me.
that was called like the weekend.
Yeah, that was the weekend. That's life.
Yeah,
just, another day,
just another weekend.
Yeah. So. Well, should we talk about my breakdown?
Yeah, let's get into it, man. Like, why don't you kind of explain what we're thinking here?
All right. Let me use an analogy here a little bit. It's I grew up a Utah Jazz fan, and it's been hard to stay a Jazz fan over the years.
Hey, my condolences for wasting your time on the NBA in general. Man.
Oh, I know. Talk about trauma. Just bad years after, like hopes. Anyways, I won't get into all of that. But tonight is the lottery for the NBA to get. The Jazz tanked and tried to get the best odds to get the first pick. But it's fascinating to watch, like what's going on. They had two really good players that are both in the playoffs, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They're both in the playoffs right now. Their teams are thriving, and they had both of them on the team. And I think it was 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. 4 years ago, I think.
Both of these guys were all-stars.
Yeah, all-stars, good players. Jazz decided to just tear it down, just trade them, get rid of them, get some assets as a result, and start at square one and rebuild. So they broke it down, and I'm in a similar phase in my life. It's actually really fun. I'm enjoying it, but selling my business.
You got a lot of stress on your plate as a result of what you got and done.
Yeah, my steady paycheck is gone. I'm starting from square one. We're starting over again, and it's been really interesting to me. It's you'd look at that and you'd say, why would the Jazz, why would Brannon,
Brannon have a practice where he has 25 therapists working under him, and he's basically just rolling with a successful business? Why would you go burn it all down?
Yeah, so I think there's something to learn here, and I think it's important across different areas of life, and we all go through this. There's this pattern that we go through, and we work really hard to create what we're going to create, whether it's our relationships, our careers, our businesses, and we do what we can to create. And as you do that, things start to happen. You'll fail with some things, and they won't come to fruition. You'll succeed at other things, and those will go well. You'll succeed for a while and then start to come up against some hard things that are difficult. But whatever you're in, whether it's a relationship or a business, you'll start to get feedback that is telling you that this is where you're supposed to be or not. And Tyler, we confuse what that feedback is. A lot of us think that the feedback is that I feel comfortable. Okay, I feel secure, I feel comfortable. That's not like that ultimately is what creates a lot of depression and a lot of people feeling like there's there's a void in their life, and they're unwilling to tear some things down, whether it's a marriage or a business or relationships they've built. They're unwilling to tear those things down because they're comfortable in what they are, but they feel feelings of depression and resentment and just a lack in their life going on. And what they need is they need to actually tear some things down. What are you thinking, Tyler?
Yeah, well, as you're talking, Brannon, it's like I'm thinking of the reasons why we choose to do the things that we do in the first place to get to the place that we get to, where then you have to burn it down. And I think a lot of times it's a kind of a weird dialectic that the reason we choose to do things often is because we're in a state of discomfort to the point that we want something better, or we're in a state of uncertainty and we're trying to create certainty. And then as we grow towards those places, once we finally arrive there, like, let's just take certainty for a second. I'm thinking of this, Brannon, like in terms of this is something that's really difficult for couples who have been through betrayal, because at the beginning there's no trust. It's been totally shattered. And so there's a certain way of living in that state to see if trust is going to rebuild itself. And so you're really heavy on certain kinds of boundaries. You're really heavy on self-protection. You're really heavy on looking for, like, people who've been betrayed want to guarantee it's never going to happen again. And that guarantee can never actually come. And so they build into this place of safety.
Well, and I would put quotation marks on that type of safety.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think is the problem is they can get to a spot where they're safe, in quotes,
quotation marks,
but what they're really wanting, the deeper desires of their hearts, is to be in a relationship where there's deep connection. And deep connection can only come through uncertainty and vulnerability and empathy. And so then I have to, in some ways, burn down the very thing that I used to get back to being stable again after feeling crazy, in order to lean back into a relationship that doesn't actually provide guarantees that I'm safe, for the sake of my overall goal, which is that I want deeper connection.
This is a perfect example, Tyler. I love it. And it's so applicable to what we talk about all the time. Because it's like, I can do things that help me know that I'm not going to get hurt, right? But those very things that I do that create this quote safety are undermining my ability to feel trust and intimacy and deep connection, the things that I really desire. Actually, the things that I'm actually trying to protect myself from, like what I really desire is those things, and I'm worried that I'm not going to get them, so I do things to feel safe that undermine getting those things.
That's right.
And these systems, they get put in place unconsciously and automatically, and they go on over time, and you start to get certain outcomes from them. And a lot of times people won't listen to the outcomes. They're more concerned in the protection mode, in the comfort, in the making sure they're okay. Tyler, for years, I knew that I wasn't supposed to be in my partnership and in my business. I knew
you were talking to me probably 3 or 4 years ago about the fact that you knew that something probably wasn't quite in alignment with where your life needed to go. And I think we had multiple talks. I even remember having one of our best friends have a very frank talk with you about 3 or 4 years ago.
It was frank.
And he was dead on, but it took you 3 or 4 years to get to where you could get yourself to make the decision to do what you did, because there's a lot of risk involved in what you chose to do.
Absolutely. Who wants to tear it down? Who wants to, so it puts you between a rock and a hard place, where it's like, okay, I have worked extremely hard to get this comfortable. And yet there's this deeper sense of self and purpose. There's a part of me that's dying as a result of being in this situation. So I got to ask myself the question, what is more important? Here I am, middle-aged, talk about midlife crisis here. Middle-aged, you got to ask yourself, okay, like, is this it? Like, I've kind of made it. Like, I'm comfortable, but I feel like this isn't it. Right. And I'm not just talking about me and my situation. I'm talking about anyone in a relationship, in a career. I went to dinner last week, Tyler, and I was talking to these friends of mine, and every single one of them was in a place of like, I want more out of my life. I don't feel fulfilled. And they're all comfortable. They all have enough money. They're all surviving. They all have food on the table, and they're just like a little bit dead inside. What do they need to do? What they think they need to do is like work harder and like try harder. They need to tear some stuff down, whether it's their belief systems, whether it's their comfort. Tyler, I've never been more motivated than right now. I'm motivated, right? Because I've gotten myself in this situation. So,
right. Well, Brannon, as you're talking, I think we're probably where we're at in our lives too. We see this, we're experiencing it, I think, in some ways ourselves. You talk about all your friends, midlife crisis. I wonder how many of our listeners right now are sitting there listening to this going, two things. I really want something more out of my life than this cubicle that I'm sitting in right now, doing my nice, safe, stable job that provides for my family. But I am dying every single day that I come to work. And then you have someone like the therapy brothers here.
When you say, Tyler, when you say dying, you're like, it's this slow, just like blah.
It's like a slow internal, like numbing death to life. But I feel handcuffed because I can't go take the risks anymore because I got a family to provide for. I got kids to provide for. I got to pay the bills. I got to pay the mortgage. I got to do everything else. And I worked my butt off to get to this spot that I'm currently in that I thought, man, I remember this, Brannon. Like, this is crazy to think about getting out of grad school. This is a long time ago, a couple of decades ago. And we got out of grad school and I was getting paid just like really minimal wages. Like I was making like 35 grand a year as a full-time therapist for the drug courts. And then I was kind of getting incremental raises. And I remember sitting with my wife and going like, man, if you could just make a salary of just a college professor, then we would have arrived.
Made it.
And that I think that rate there at the time was like, 60 or 70 or maybe 80 grand, topped out at like 80 grand back then. And I was like, man, we will have arrived.
Yeah.
And then, 2 decades later, we've blown way past that mark. And what are we doing?
Feeling like it's not enough.
It's like, oh geez, if we could just make this, if we could just do this, if we could just do that. But then when you finally arrive, you sit there on it and then you feel comfortable in it. And I think what you're saying, Brannon, this is actually really difficult, is when is the right time to stay in the comfort and when is the right time to take the risk? But eventually I'm going to have to take the risk. And I got this image in my mind while you were talking, excuse the metaphor here, but we went to Alaska a couple of times, and one time we went on this little hike to see the bears, but you also could look down in the river and it was just like sheets of salmon that you could see in the water.
Bald eagle flying down, grabbing the salmon. I mean, it was just like straight out of a
pristine
nature
and beautiful
show. Yeah.
And where we went to, there was a waterfall, and the waterfall is where the salmon have to go up in order to continue the journey upstream to eventually spawn. That's their last real act of life before they die, as they get to pass on their DNA and have some kind of offspring, something to show for it. But then you'd watch these salmon try to jump up the waterfall, and multiple times they would get smashed back down, or they'd get grabbed by a bear, but they get smashed back down, and then you'd see them go into this big, deep pool at the bottom of the waterfall, and they'd sit there. And they'd sit there and sit there and sit there. But eventually, what did they do?
They'd start swimming again.
They had to try again. And they might do that multiple times before they finally get up over the waterfall, only to then go further upstream, probably to another waterfall with other bears and eagles.
Or they might die trying.
But they would be better off, and the salmon doesn't know any better because the salmon has it built into them to know that what they have to do before they die is to get to their spawning grounds and complete that last action. We as human beings are different. We actually find that pool of water and we get kicked around by the current a couple of times and we have a bear claw at us and we're like, I think I'd rather just die this slow death without the final payoff of continued growth than put myself at risk of getting slammed down again. Because what will people think, or what will this, or what will that, or whatever else. And in doing so, we are now the ones who are slowly closing our prison cell until we die a slow death in that pool at the bottom of a waterfall with no final growth.
But I love this analogy. Let me see if I can explain a concept here that I think is really important that this analogy works for. The living, Tyler, is about the swimming up the river. It's not about getting to the final pool. Like, that's the living. That's like, hey, like, I feel like I'm in my purpose. You take someone like Martin Luther King or somebody, and I don't think he'd say, well, the most important thing is that I had enough money to have a house, right? For him, he had purpose. He had there was a reason to live. And I guess what I'm saying is, whatever we're doing, comfort is not the end goal. Living in our purpose, what did God make us for? That's our end goal beyond everything else. Like, you might look at it and be like, oh, I could make $1 million easily over there, or I could like be on the front of the battlefield over there. I feel like I'm supposed to be on the battlefield. It's same with your story about you got that college professor job, Tyler. You talk about a cush, comfortable job. Like that's probably not going out of business, right? But you chose living. You chose purpose, and you tore down everything that you had worked for and started fresh. I mean, we were laughing the other day about how hard it was to get our first clients. And you turned down your comfortable job that you had worked so hard for to step into that. And so the point I'm trying to make is we have a kind of a messed up sense of okayness, I think. And we're conditioned into this. It's very fixed mindset-y. It's that once you arrive here, once you arrive there, then you've made it. You just said it, Tyler. Certain income, a wife and kids, then you've made it. But that's a lie.
Well, yeah, that's a lie. But I think that's also, and I think what you're saying, Brannon, about the being in the current and swimming is the living, and the sitting in the pool and resting for a time is also part of the living. You just can't get stuck there. And where humans go is they sometimes choose to get stuck until they're lying on their deathbed at night going, why didn't I try to swim that waterfall one more time? Why didn't I? Yeah. They can get themselves to stay in that pool for too long, and then they're gone. Or, another visual that I'm having is I like to climb the mountains up around my house, and I'll pick a peak that I want to get to, and the mountains are deceiving because it looks like you just walk straight up, but what you end up walking up a ridge is you walk up, and then you have what's called a false summit. You think you're there, and then when you get there, you look up and there's another one and another one, and sometimes there's even a dip down where you lose the elevation that you were gaining to have to get to the next part of the ridge to then go up again. Yeah. And I hate losing the progress of my elevation, but it's a necessary thing if I want to get to the very top.
Yes.
And I think as human beings, that's another part of this. That's the struggle, Brannon, where I think a lot of us silently get stuck is when we've worked so hard to get to a certain place of what we would call perceived progress. And then we look out at our life and realize, I just got balloons coming up on my Zoom for me. I don't know what I just did there. But
happy birthday.
I guess so. But then we look over the edge and we're like, I got to go back down there in order to climb back up again. Like, why would I do that? Like, I've worked too hard to get to this point. And we hate the loss of progress, at least perceived progress. And if we're looking at it from too narrow of a point of view, then a lot of times we refuse to take the step back down into that next part of the ridge before we have to climb back up again.
But there's a different way of like a different paradigm you can live in. And instead of looking at that little hill you got to climb down and being like, I lose all my progress. You don't look at it that way. You don't look at it as progress or not progress. You get to go down that hill. That's an experience. That's exciting. That's good.
You get to rest your legs for a second.
Yeah, I mean, every time, in junior high, like, after a couple of years, you finally figure it out and you're the cool kid. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Junior high is over. And you're starting with a whole batch of new kids going into high school, and you got to figure it out again. You get out of high school and you figured that out, and you're just thinking you got it all, you're everything. And boom, knocked off your pedestal. We're starting again. Right? You get in a relationship and you're about to get married and you think this person loves you and they dump you. You're starting again, right? And you can look at that downhill with like just eyes of just God is punishing you. Why is this so hard? Why is it this way? Or you can understand that this is the nature of life. This is the nature of life. Now, Tyler, I don't think we're suggesting that you go burn it all down.
Yeah.
Are we?
No, I don't think, not just for the sake of burning it all down.
Right.
Right. There should be some forethought and some intention. And also, I think the biggest word that's coming to mind is congruence. I should burn down. I heard a quote by Jordan Peterson that said, our lives are like driftwood and we should constantly be burning the things that don't serve us anymore. But too many people are too afraid because 95% of us is driftwood. And we can't handle the fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that there's that fearful part of it, that always wants to step in. It's a human thing, Brannon. I think most people, when they're faced with an instant change, especially when they worked really hard to get somewhere, I think there's a dance that has to be done with ourselves mentally and emotionally to get us to embrace that, oh, wow, I get to rest my legs for a second before I keep climbing, or to see the bigger picture and say that is the only way to the top of the peak. So I've got to go do that.
Right.
They're the people who get really good at managing and letting their emotions become aware of them and flow through them, and then change their perspective and then embrace the fact that it's not really moving backwards. It's moving, even though it feels like you're going back down again for a minute, you're moving into more congruence, into who God was designing you to be in the first place.
Yep. By doing that breakdown work. And it can feel opposite. It's like congruence. I'm feeling more stress. I'm feeling not unstable. Instability. That's God's work. And yeah, in some ways, you step into that instability, you give it a chance to reset. If I built a really, well, I'll give you this analogy. The Commanders, my team, since we're talking about sports today, they just announced that they're building a brand new stadium right on the site of where RFK was, their old stadium. And so, how well could they build a stadium if RFK was still there?
Right. You can't.
Right? You can't. You just can't. You got to take some dynamite to it. I think, Tyler, we're all about analogies today. I got another one. Forest fire. What happens after a forest fire?
It's charred black.
Yeah. Where do the elk hang out, Tyler?
If you're into hunting and you want to hunt deer and elk, you look for places where there was a forest fire 3 to 7 years ago.
Yeah, why?
Because the undergrowth can finally start to reestablish itself, and that's the food. That's the best possible food for people.
Yep.
For the animals.
Yeah, you want to find elk, you look in the burns, and it's interesting that there's life where it burned down, and there's regrowth, there's rebirth, there's change, there's newness that comes as a result.
Yeah, you got that. People have heard this with the big fire in Yellowstone. Anyone who's been to Yellowstone, there's that one area where you drive through where the big fire was. If you would have gone through there 20 years ago, it would have been nothing but charred black sticks and black ground. And now it is so full of greenery. And what they found is that the pine trees that are now growing, it was the actual heat of the fire that opened the pine cones that dropped the seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And otherwise, there wouldn't be that many trees, even with natural growth.
Yes. That's, I mean, how we as humans don't operate that way or experience that. Like, I don't know why we think that we don't. Because whether you
It's
don't
because
want
we think.
Yeah, our ego fights
The
it.
ego thinks.
Yes, but guess what? Whether you think that you're not going to experience that or not, whether your ego's protecting you against that or not, it's happening in your life. The fire's there, the burn is happening because we got to crack open some life. It might be a slow burn, it might be a hot burn, but we got to crack open some life, whether you like it or not. Right, Tyler? Nobody can avoid it.
No, you're spot on. And that's a couple comments here in the chat have come up that are right along this line where Daniel says it reminds him of Way of the Superior Man, where David says something like, not sitting in comfort and always push yourself to your true edge. Right.
Yes.
That's where life is really found. You know, one more analogy, since we're using all sorts of nature analogies with that, it's like fishing. When you fly fish, you look for certain things in the water to know where the biggest concentration and the biggest fish are going to be. And the biggest fish like depth because that provides safety and coolness, but they also like current because the current is like the conveyor belt that brings the food. And so the biggest fish will find a spot that's right in what's called the seams, where there's a slow current that meets up with the fast current, and they'll sit in the slow current and conserve their energy, but they'll dart into the fast current to get their food. And life is the most productive in the seams between those two places where the current is fast and the current is slow.
I think you got analogy
sense?
of the day. Wow. I got it. That's a good one.
That was going to be one of my analogies. I had this dream of like starting a company called Therapy on the Fly, which would be guided float trips for clients that want to come do marriage or like parent-child work. And then we'd have analogies of fly fishing all built into the day of floating down, doing some fly fishing.
Oh man.
Life is best lived in the seams is one of the big principles there. So
say more about it. Like, let's really flush this out. So it's in the seams. So the fish is backing up in the comfort and then going into the current.
Yeah, and the current is
fed.
The current brings two things. It brings food and oxygen. The movement of the water is what produces oxygen in the water that the fish's gills can process. So a fish that stays in very stagnant water actually doesn't survive very well. They need current. Because they need the oxygen to be churning through, and in order to get oxygen, the water has to be moving. So they're in between the swift and the soft parts of the water. The soft parts of the water provide the rest, so that they don't have to use all their energy. It's like the pool at the bottom of the waterfall for the salmon. But the fast currents are bringing oxygen and food to the fish, and they need that. They need both.
But the very thing that they need is the thing that wears them out and the thing that challenges them. And
on the other side, the very thing they need to rest can also lead to a slow death.
Can kill them.
Yeah.
That is analogy of the day. That is our life right there. And the reason why that's so profound, Tyler, especially in midlife, you know, all my friends and clients, and you get to this place of like stagnation. And
You found a really nice deep pool.
Yeah, I found a good deep pool, and it's like, well, guess what? Like, the answer might be the opposite of what you want it to be. You might have to step into something challenging in order to feel alive again. You might have to step into something hard in order to feel on the edge again. Like, who was it, Daniel, talking about living on the edge?
Yeah.
If you're not living on the edge, you're not really living. And that's not taking unneeded risks. That's not burning your life down. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is you have purpose in you. You have reason to live. You have unique abilities, talents. If you're not stepping into figuring those things out, then you have figured out comfort, you're going to feel depressed. You're going to feel shut down. You're going to amp up your addiction to try to feel alive.
Yeah, because you're looking for something. There's still that itch to scratch. There's still that part of you that needs that. And I believe we're wired for growth. And it's the weirdest thing because we work so that we can rest. And then after we rest, like this is what happened to me in Costa Rica. Like I was there for 7 days, almost 8 days. And the first couple of days, I'm like, I'm just going to kick it. I'm going to sit on the beach, do nothing, just relax. And by like day 2.5, I'm like just crawling out of my skin.
You're
like
done.
When I'm walking on the beach, I'm like, I'm going to go for another walk. My wife's like, why can't you just sit down and relax? And I'm like, well, I'm going to go look for shells, or I'm going to go like do this, or I'm going to go do that. And she's like, why can't you just sit down and simply be here? And, and then I sit and I think I work my tail off so that eventually I can retire and like sit on the beach. And when I'm sitting on the beach,
maybe you
retired,
should never retire.
I'm going to be wishing I was sitting back in my office talking to people, helping people. So maybe I should just learn to be content with exactly right where we're at right now. And that we as human beings, we're built better than anything else in this world. Despite all of our limitations, we are built to grow.
Yeah.
We're built to grow. We are the perfect mechanism for continuous improvement.
It's interesting to me that the healthiest things you can do for yourself are the uncomfortable things. It feels backwards. It's like, why did God make it that way? You just answered that question, Tyler. If I wake up and I exercise in the morning, that's uncomfortable. If I take risk in my business, that's uncomfortable. I could go on and on. Well, those are some of the healthiest things that we can do. And like God has set it up that way because I believe, and this is like, I believe that that's the point of this life. That's the experience that we're in. It's just about growth. It's just about learning. And if we're not growing and we're not learning and we're comfortable our whole life, then you've never really lived.
That's right. I think I've shared this a long time ago, but it's one of my favorite quotes. I sometimes, when we get on this topic, you and I have our favorite topics, I always think of this quote, and I think of it in terms of, especially when it comes to like having a broken heart, but it applies to the principle we're talking about overall. And it's this by C.S. Lewis. The goal of being in a relationship is to love, right? And I'm learning a lot about love in my own life right now and realizing that love has very little to do with what my wife brings to the equation and everything to do with what I bring. But this quote, it really hits home for me with this topic we've been talking about. And it says, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. That's life. Yep. And those who embrace vulnerability as necessary for real life somehow don't seem to suffer with it as much. Right. They still experience life's pains and struggles and changes and growth. They experience the dip in climbing the peak. They experience the waterfall and the bears and the eagles as they try to swim to the top. They experience all of those things, but they just see it as necessary.
Life. That's life.
Yeah.
Tyler, thank you for breaking down my breakdown with me.
We never even got into your breakdown yet, man.
No, we got there. That was great.
We started with your breakdown, and then you started lecturing everybody else about their breakdown. But I guess we're all kind of in the same spot, aren't we?
We're all there. We're all in the process of breakdown. Oh, I just thought of a new analogy.
Oh no!
I'll just say this. I threw a lot of compost in my garden yesterday. I'll leave it there. I'll let the audience figure that one out.
Yeah, that does remind me of the story, Brannon, the childhood story you referenced at the beginning. Do you remember Dad brought home a whole truckload of manure one day and backed it up into our backyard?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey boys, we got some new gardening beds, and I need all of you guys. I need you guys to shovel this whole bed of cow manure into these new beds so that I can grow my garden." And then he left, and so it's just the three of us there, and we started shoveling this crap into these beds. And I was the one who was you guys were the non-acceptant ones, you and Rex, and you're like, "Yeah, Dad, this and that. He's always that, whatever." And I sat there, and in our religion, there's this story of like three brothers, and one of them's like the really good brother who does everything right. Who
You're telling this at the end of the...
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to put you, and so I turned to you, and like the brother's name is Nephi, and then the other two brothers who are always bad and like getting mad at their dad are called Laman and Lemuel. And I sat there and I leaned up on my shovel and I was like, "You know what, boys? It's kind of like I'm Nephi and you guys are Laman and Lemuel."
This story makes you look bad.
I know. And then I'm like all self-righteous, shoveling this crap, and then it made you guys ticked off, and I think you guys started like trying to throw like crap at me with the shovels,
and then I think we left,
and then I think you left, and I pretty much did the whole thing myself. Yeah. So
I don't know how that fits in, but I love that story.
Well, you asked for a childhood story, so I put it on. I put it on for you
with compost and manure. All right, we've gone off the rails. I don't know if this little saying could be more applicable to a topic that we've talked about. So until next time, guys, keep on keeping on.